There's a quote by Naval Ravikant, and he says the worst outcome in life is having low esteem. And this is what I want to talk about today because I think a lot of people can relate to having low self esteem, having that self hate, or being in a state of feeling like you're not enough, or thinking that you aren't enough for the people around you, aren't meeting standards of people around you, or meeting your own standards, having your own self hate, and sitting in that hole that you create in your own mind. Because when you think about it, if you're talking to a friend or if you're talking to a loved one, you would never talk to them the way that you talk to yourself, because it's not kind, it's not loving. And I think we often forget how important it is to keep ourselves in that equation, because without it, we start destroying ourselves from the root. We put ourselves in that sulking depression hole, and water it, water that depressing plant to just let it grow inside of you, and instead of kind of changing and finding ways to outlet self-hatred to a point where it can get you to grow and progress as human, and maybe even help others along the way. You can think of a lot of situations where, at least for me, I find how I'll be very critical of myself in certain moments, and in different case, I'll be talking to a friend who might made a mistake, and instead of kind of keeping that same thought process between talking to each other, it's completely different. That's what I was talking about. How when you think about yourself, you're much more honest and unforgiving than you are with other people, or people you close to you. So next time you do find yourself, uh, I guess, making mistake, doing wrong, doing something against your own moral code or virtues, then instead of immediately noticing how wrong you were, how unwanted you are by pretty much yourself and what you think other people, like you're doing this thing and you've done something wrong, and now you think that everyone is going to be angry with you because of this thing that you did wrong, and you work it into your own mind to the point now you hate yourself for doing it. And when you hate yourself, that limits you as and to doing so many different things. I can say this firsthandedly. Without having that self-esteem, you're not going to be able to go out into a public setting or places where people are around, and be able to be your best normal authentic self, because that authentic self that you see yourself as just did something wrong, and now you're being so critical of yourself that that authentic self that you just saw do something wrong, your mind has deemed that version, your true self, not as worthy enough to be around other people. And from that comes the fake, the different ways you present yourself around different people, and doing that worsens the problem, where it makes your own self-love go down, your own self-worth go down. You find yourself being less of yourself around other people because of how low your esteem is, how unkind you are to yourself. And it's something I wanted to say like today, because it's something so swept under the radar. Nobody really talks about their own critique of themselves. They always either want to judge others, or always judge others differently and differently how they treat themselves. And you overlook that, because when you look at someone you truly love unconditionally, you're not going to lie to them and tell them, "Oh, you're so, like, they did something wrong." But you're not going to like flame them. You're not going to push them down. you're going to tell them what they did wrong so they can learn from it and become better. And the same way that you should love yourself, you should treat that situation the same. When you do something wrong, or do something that you deem as not kind and unloving to yourself or others, then instead of being that extra critical and pushing yourself down that further hole, go back into the situation in your head, think clearly about it, and instead of, oh, I'm a piece of shit because I've done this, it's, I've done this, so what can I do to better myself so that it doesn't happen again? And when you switch that perspective into thinking uh, almost more mature about your own actions and kind of accepting mistakes going to happen, life is going to happen, you're going to do things wrong, you're going to run into problems, and instead of putting yourself down a deeper hole, kind of using that situation to get better from it, and in turn it's going to help your own self-esteem because you're not going to be pushing yourself down that hole, you're not going to be overly critical of yourself and putting all these negative thoughts in your head, because you wouldn't talk to a friend like that. And keep that same mentality when you're talking to yourself. When you have higher self-esteem, when you have higher self-love, when you have better mood because you're not in your own head thinking you're so down, you feel so guilty about certain things you do, you don't feel the wants or the discipline or the motivation to do the things you need to do because you're so caught up in thinking you're not worthy enough to even achieve the things you want to achieve. When you see yourself doing that, you gotta turn away, because I know exactly the feeling of going through with something and then realizing how bad of a decision it was. And I'm pretty sure everyone knows that feeling. I'm pretty sure everyone knows the feeling of feeling guilt. The biggest word is to describe it as guilt. And when you do something that you're not proud of and you push yourself down a hole to where you don't change or get better from it, you just kind of sit in it. There's no good change coming from it. And that's what the quote reminded me of and wanted me to talk about because it's so relatable to me, especially. And I feel a lot of people overlook themselves in the equation of love. And a way to kind of build it up higher and build your own self-worth higher is to express that love outwards towards other people. And I think often that aspect gets brought up higher than yourself, even though it is a very good way of expressing the love, so that instead of the love that you're not getting, you're giving it out to other people and feeling fulfillment from that, feeling happiness from that, and gaining that self-esteem that you're worthy of making somebody else happier. And that that dynamic works in a way to where you got to have the balance. Like I said, always about the balance, because if you're overexerting that and overly critical of yourself, then you're gonna feel more secluded, more shut down, more isolated, like I talked about earlier in the other videos, and that's gonna push you down this hole. Now, when you balance those two things and you express the love, give it out towards other people, but also view yourself as someone who's worthy of getting that love expressed too, then that's where you can push it even further, grow even further, and love yourself more. And I think everyone can agree that when they love themselves more, they're able to complete more things. They're able to have more enjoyment throughout their day, more fulfillment throughout their day. Because I know, especially for me, when I know I can look at a day and feel proud of it, and then wake up the next day, I feel more motivated to do that day in general. And when I push myself down a hole, I wake up and I'm like, I got to do this again. It completely shifts how that first thought is when you wake up, because without that confidence, without that self love, you're just gonna push yourself down this deeper hole, and you're not gonna get out the hole. So next time you do see a scenario where you may have done something wrong, try and, as for me, I think this is one of the biggest struggles I have. So even I'm still working on it, and I know extremely hard to do is to forgive yourself. And this doesn't mean you have to completely push out all these negative thoughts and not critique yourself at all and think that you're perfect. It's just learning to accept life is going to happen, accept mistakes are going to happen. You're going to fall down. What the most important thing is getting back up. And part of that getting back up is, instead of pushing yourself down that hole with the negative thoughts and the guilt and thinking you're not worth enough for others or for yourself, is thinking, okay, I may have fallen down here, but I'm going to get back up. I'm going to change this vice for a virtue, and build these good habits so that this happens, at least happens less often. And now you can see yourself with more confidence, more pride. You have more love for yourself. You think you're more worthy for love to come towards you the same way that you give it out to other people. And when you do that, you'll feel more happy throughout the day. You'll feel more fulfilled. You'll find more instances in your life that you can be more grateful for, because you're noticing how this scenario, older me would have fallen for it. But because I didn't sit in that hole and I learned from it and I was kinder to myself, I built up that self-esteem. I built up my own self-worth. I was able to get the reward in the future. I was able to look for that long-term satisfaction, gratification, instead of pushing myself down that hole and keeping that guilt and the self-hatred and the inability to forgive yourself. It's all gone out the window now. Maybe not completely. It's never, and nothing's ever really gone, but now you have this scenario where you can fully notice those things and still pass by them like they're like an obstacle in your life that you've grown strong enough to get past. And that's the point of learning to have self-forgiveness and self-love and being kind to yourself just like you would a friend or a loved one. So that's what I want to talk about today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.